said I understood. I carried all your silence like nobody else could. You laid your doubts beside me like they were safe somehow. I picked them up with trembling hands. I still remember how you loosened every promise like it didn't mean a thing. I tightened all the broken parts just to make us breathe. I held what you dropped, every word, every vow. When your love slipped through your fingers, I reached out somehow. You walked away lighter. I stayed with the cost. I held what you dropped when you let us get lost. I learned to love in fragments, in pieces left behind. I stitched your doubts to my own heart, called it just bad time. You said you needed freedom, I gave you all of mine. I stood guard over what we were while you crossed the line. You said I asked for too much, I was asking you to stay. You said love shouldn't hurt like this, then you turned away. I held what you dropped when you stopped trying to care. I carried all the weight you refused to bear. You closed the door so gently, like nothing was lost. I held what you dropped and paid the cost. Maybe love isn't meant to feel like saving someone alone. Maybe hearts aren't built to carry what two should have owned. I thought if I stayed steady, you come back around. But you don't miss what you abandoned when it never hits the ground. I held what you dropped long after you were gone. I kept us alive in my head when the truth was done. I held what you dropped, but I'm setting it down. I won't be the only one who fights for us now. I'll leave your promises where they belong. I held what you dropped, but I've held it too long. If love ever asks me where I got lost, I'll say I stayed too long, holding what you dropped. I watched the seasons change alone while you were already gone. Your name still lives inside my chest like a half-forgotten song. You said we'd grow together, but you grew away from me. I kept watering the love you stopped believing in. You let the silence speak for you. I heard it every night. I held on when it was heavy. I stayed through missing you. When your heart got tired, mine was still strong. You stopped loving early, I loved you longer. I memorized your sadness, learned the shape of all your fears. I stood beside your shadows for your darkest years. You called me your forever, but forever changed its mind. You left me with the echoes of a love you left behind. I blame myself for losing you, like love was my mistake. But some hearts just stop trying before others get the break. I loved you longer through the doubt and pain. When loving you was lonely, I still wore your name. You found a way to leave me, I found a way to stay strong. You stopped loving early, I loved you longer. Maybe love's not always equal, maybe timing tells the truth. You outgrew the feeling, I stay loyal to you. If loving was a measure of who held on the most, I'd still be standing here with everything you lost. I loved you longer, even after goodbye, when your voice became a memory and your touch alive. I loved you longer, now I'm learning to let go. I'm carrying the pieces you'll never know. If love ever asked me what went wrong, I'll say you left when it got real. I loved you longer. One day longer. One day you might remember what you walked away from then, but I won't be waiting anymore. I loved you longer. That was the end. You pack your words in quiet boxes, left them all around the room. Your voice still hangs in the curtains like a faded afternoon. I watched your shadow cross the doorway without returning back to me. You said you needed time to breathe, and I learned how not to speak. I didn't chase you leaving, I just held my breath instead. Let the silence fill the spaces of the things we never said. I stayed after you left, held the pieces you dropped, loved you in the echoes when your loving stopped. You walked into tomorrow like I was yesterday. I stayed after you side of the bed, like you might change your mind. Kept your name inside my phone, like it was still mine. I made excuses for your absence, told my heart you'd return, but waiting turned into what habit, and hope is slow to learn. I wore your goodbye like a secret. I couldn't let them see that the person I was becoming was someone you couldn't be. I stayed after you left, when loving hurt the most. I set a place for you, you never chose. You found peace in letting go. I found pain in staying the same. I stay after you left, and whispered your name. Maybe staying felt like loyalty, but it was fear in disguise. I thought love meant surviving all the unanswered whys. If I could talk to that version of me, still standing in the hole, I'd tell her leaving sooner would've saved it all. I stayed after you left longer than I should, mistook abandonment for something good. I stayed after you left. Now I'm learning to leave too. I'm choosing my healing over missing you. You taught me what it cost to love without respect. I stayed after you left, but I won't stay like that again. Your memory still visits, but it doesn't hurt as bad. I stayed after you left, so I could learn how to stand. I circled every maybe, like it was a sure thing. I counted all your footsteps that were never coming. Your name stayed on my phone, like a promise not erased. I kept the door half open while you walked another way. You said you needed time, I gave you all of mine. I built a future out of words you didn't mean to find. I waited for nothing, call it love somehow. I believed in return when you were gone already now. You stood still in the heartbreak while you learned how to move on. I waited for a miracle, but I waited for nothing. I defended your silence like it was something kind. Told myself your distance was just bad timing, not a sign. I watched the seasons change, still holding on to you. Every day that passed me by was another thing I lost too. I run, I hoped and lie without ever making a sound. It looks like someone leaving while you're still standing around. for nothing. With my heart in my hands, I mistook your absence for a test I could pass, and never asked me to stay, but I stayed all alone. I waited for your love and waited for nothing. Maybe waiting felt like loyalty, but it was fear of goodbye. I thought love meant patience, even when it was one side of town. If I could speak to who I was, still staring at the door, I'd tell love shouldn't hurt just to be endured. I waited for nothing while losing myself. I put your needs above mine until there was nothing. Love, I waited for nothing. Now I'm choosing to go, letting go of the future you never wanted to know. Forgive myself for staying while believing you'd come. I didn't wait, put up it all. I waited for nothing. The door's finally closing and my heart is learning to run. I waited for nothing. Now I'm done. I learned your pain before my own, wore your sadness like a dress. I called it love, I called it fate, anything but what it was. I bent myself in quiet ways just to fit inside your arms. Every time you needed space, I learned to fall apart. You said love shouldn't hurt like this, but you never felt the ache of holding someone tightly while they slowly drift away. Loving you was the wound I kept trying to heal. Every tear I cried for you was something you didn't feel. I called it devotion, I called it the truth. But all this time, loving you was the wound. I waited on you, maybe, like it was a promised land. Turned your absence into hope, held it gently in my hands. I forgave the empty nights, the words you never meant. I thought love meant endurance, not knowing what it meant. I kept blaming all my flaws for the damage you ignored. I thought if I loved harder, you'd stop leaving through the door. Loving you was the wound that never closed its eyes. You walked away unbroken while I learned how pain survives. I bled through every promise, still believing you were true. I didn't lose myself in time, I lost myself in you. Maybe love is meant to lift you, not leave you on your knees. Maybe hearts are not a place for constant apologies. If love feels like a battle, where only one side bleeds. That's not devotion, darling. That's a slow defeat. Loving you was the wound I tried to hide inside. Smiled through the hurt and cried when no one heard me cry. Loving you was the wound, believing is the cure. I'm learning how to breathe again, how to feel secure. I won't confuse pain for passion or chaos for the truth. I'm choosing something kinder now than loving you. I'll keep the lessons, not the scars. I'll keep my heart, not the proof I didn't fail at loving. Loving you was the wound. You said my name like it was nothing, just a sound you learned to say. Your eyes were somewhere in the future, where I didn't have a place. I watched you laugh a little louder at someone I don't know. And in that moment, quietly, I felt myself let go. I tried to read your face for truth, but it was already gone. You don't look at someone you love like they're easy to move on. It was the day I felt replaceable, like I was just a face, something you could leave behind without a second wave. I gave you all my fragile parts, you traded them away. It was the day I felt replaceable, and nothing felt the same. Put your heart before my own. I defended you in every room, like love was all I'd known. You said I was imagining things, said I was afraid, but love don't make you question if you're something that can fade. You didn't break me all at once, you let it happen slow. You made me feel forgettable before you let me go. It was the day I felt replaceable, standing next to you, when I realized your silence was something someone knew. You stopped choosing me in small ways that hurt the most to say. It was the day I felt replaceable, and love just slipped away. Maybe I should thank that moment for opening my eyes, for showing me the difference between comfort and a lie. If I was truly everything you said I was to you, you wouldn't make me feel so small, like I was easy to lose. It was the day I felt replaceable, and something in me knew I was holding on to someone who was already through. It was the day I felt replaceable, but I won't stay that way. I'm learning how to choose myself for the first time today. I was never hard to love, you just didn't stay. but I'll remember this instead. The day I chose me. I stood at the edge of every maybe, while you stood halfway out the door. I felt the cracks before they showed. You said we're fine, nothing more. I held our nights together with tired hands and hope. You watched us slowly unravel, like it wasn't yours to hold. Every time I reached for you, you stepped a little back. I was building us a future. You were packing up your past. This is the love you didn't fight for when it mattered the most. I bled belief into our promises. You let them go. I stayed when it was heavy. You left when it was hard. Now I'm standing in the ruins of the love you didn't fight for. I learned how to read your silence like it was written in your eyes. Every unanswered question was another small goodbye. You said love shouldn't hurt this much, like pain was my demand. But love is bruises on the heart from holding with one hand. I begged for signs of effort. You gave me distance instead. I asked you to choose us. You chose the quiet end. This is the love you didn't fight for. When it started to fall, I tried to save every moment. You didn't try at all. I carried all the weight while you loosened your heart. Now I'm left with the echoes of the love you didn't fight for. Maybe you mistook comfort for something you outgrew. Maybe loving someone deeply was too much to do. But I would've stood through anything if you had just stood too. It takes two to hold a promise, and I held it for you. This is the love you didn't fight for. I fought alone. I built a home inside your heart. You never called your own. This is the love you didn't fight for. Now I'm learning to release. I'm choosing myself over waiting for what you couldn't be. I walk away with honesty and a heart still sore, but I won't beg for something you never fought for. If you ever wonder where we broke or when it slipped before, remember this was everything to me. The love you didn't fight for. The room still knows you're breathing. The clock still says your name. Your jacket on the doorway, like you're coming back again. I talk to all the shadows, like their answer for you. Every night I fall asleep in the middle of the truth. You said love was forever, but forever never came. You closed the book between us without a final page. You left without the ending. No goodbye, no last line, just a silence where your heart was and the rest was mine. I keep reading all our memories like they'll suddenly make sense. You broke the story halfway through. You left without the ending. How we play every promise like a song stuck in my head, trying to find the moment where we turned into regret. I learned how to be lonely while you learned how to be free. You took all of the answers and left the questions with me. If love is something honest, why does it disappear? You walked away so easy, left me drowning in tears. You left without the ending, no warning, no sign, just a door that closed forever on the best part of my life. I keep holding on to hope like it's something I can end, but hope don't write conclusions. You left without the ending. Maybe I was just a chapter you were ready to forget. Maybe I loved you deeper than you ever did yet. If I could change one moment, I'd ask you just to stay, or at least tell me the reason before you walked away. You left without the ending, and I stayed to feel the pain, trying to finish sentences you'll never say again. You left without the ending, learning how to cope, living in the spaces between goodbye and hope. I closed the book myself now, though my heart still resists. I deserved a final sentence, but you left me like this. If love was a story, I'd still rate it again, even knowing the truth now. You left without the ending. Watch the light leave my eyes like it was something small. I kept smiling through the quiet, pretending I was fine at all. I bent every true between them just to keep you close. I felt myself unravel, but you never noticed. Every time I needed saving, you needed space instead. I was drowning right beside you while you stayed above my head. You let me break slowly, piece by piece in your hands. You stayed while I was falling, but you never helped me stand. I loved you past the warning, past the cracks you chose to see. You let me break slowly and called it loving me. I learned to speak in whispers so I wouldn't scare your heart. I hid my tears at nighttime so you wouldn't see the dark. You said I was too fragile, like that wasn't your design. You kept pulling on my weakness, then blamed me for the lines. I kept waiting for you to notice how tired I'd become, but you got used to watching while my strength came undone. You let me break slowly while saying you care. You held me when it suited you, then vanished when I was scared. I begged you for honesty, you gave me sympathy. You let me break slowly, right in front of me. Maybe love should feel like safety, not like walking on a wire. Maybe hearts are meant to burn just to keep another warm by fire. I thought pain meant I was trying, thought endurance made it real, but love that costs your sanity isn't love you're meant to feel. You let me break slowly and I helped you do it too. I kept choosing your comfort over what I needed from you. You let me break slowly, but I'm leaving whole tonight. I'm done mistaking damage for something called a fight. I'll gather all the pieces you ignored and left unseen. You let me break slowly, now I'm choosing. I won't hate you for the hurting, I just see the truth more clearly. You didn't call me apart at once. You let me break slowly. You sat right next to me, but your eyes were somewhere else. Your smile felt like a habit you were saving for yourself. I kept hearing empty laughter and the words you tried to say. Every touch was growing colder, every night a little less. I kept asking what was wrong. You said nothing had changed, but love don't fade so quietly without calling its own name. You were already gone. Before you walked away, I was holding on to something you'd already thrown away. I fought for every heartbeat while you made your escape. You were already gone. just found out too late. You stopped asking how I felt, stopped looking in my eyes. I memorized your distance, learned the shape of every lie. I blame myself for losing you, like love was something I broke. But you can't save a sinking ship when the other one lets go. You packed your heart in silence, left it out of reach. I kept waiting for a reason you never planned to teach. You were already gone, even when you stayed. Your body was beside me, but your heart had slipped away. I held on to our tomorrow. You erased it yesterday. You were already gone. I just didn't see the signs. Maybe love needs honesty more than it needs time. If you had told me sooner, I would have survived. But you let me keep believing in a dream that couldn't last. You moved on in secret while I lived in the past. You were already gone. When you said my name, it sounded like a memory you were trying to save. You were already gone. Now I'm learning to be strong, letting go of the pieces where your love belonged. I'll forgive myself for staying, for loving you that long. You were already gone, but now I'm moving on. If love ever asks me where we went wrong, I'll say I loved you honestly.